wanted to take a quick
Microphone.
moment before actual board comments, but welcome Dr. Thompson on board. I'm looking forward to working with you and seeing what you have to bring to the board, and just pretty excited about you joining us today.
And I'll just second that very quickly. Just thank you for serving along with the other board members who are here and those who are not. Just thank you so much for serving the community of Little MISD and most importantly, the kids and the teachers. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, on that note, the board will recess into closed meeting in PL1 as permitted by the Texas Open Meeting Act Code Subchapter 551.072 and 551.074. The board and superintendent will discuss personnel matters and land matters. So with that, we'll bring general session back into session at 7:06 p.m. And we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the United Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We don't have anyone for vacation tonight. All right, roll call.
Mr. Daniel Gallagher. Here. Mr. David Montemayor.
Here.
Mr. Jason Olson.
Here.
Mr. Dan Blackwood.
Present.
Councilman Thompson. Here. Ms. Melissa Myers. Here. Mr. Leon English.
Here.
And not present, Mr. Alejandro Flores.
And Ms. Flores, do we have any citizen input tonight?
We do.
All right, perfect. We have Ms. Andrea Metz. If you'll, the podium's available to you, just say your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, 3 or 5, 3. 3 minutes to speak. I'll give you a 1 minute warning and 30 seconds.
I'm sorry.
Perfect time.
Sorry, I'm like.
Perfect time. She's got a
You brought your own theme song.
She's got a accompaniment. That's awesome.
Like,
It's a multimedia presentation.
My name is Andrea Metz, and my address is 3501 Bankside, Colony, Texas, 75056.
Ross, can you turn the microphone on up there? I don't think it's on.
There it is. I haven't started yet.
Just if you can go start over and do your name and address because the mic wasn't on.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
My name is Andrea Metz. My address is 3501 Bankside, The Colony, Texas, 75056.
Thank you.
So there were a couple of things that I'd like to bring to the board's attention tonight. I have a daughter that attends Strike Middle School who was notified on 9/28 that a child in her class got COVID. And so she was asked to quarantine at home. We were not really given verbal instructions around how the attendance policy would work for Strike Middle School. I did go to the website. The attendance policy was not super clear in terms of that she had to log in. She had to actually turn something in within 12 hours of it being assigned. We actually got almost all the way through the 10-day COVID quarantine, and we received a truancy letter in the mail. And I reached out to the school, spoke with the administrators, and they said that there wasn't anything that they could do because it was a TEA rule. They admitted that they were not doing a great job of communication. The nurse basically told us that she could access her work on Canvas. And although she did complete all of her work, when I went to the website and looked at the documents that were published out there for the parents, I found one document that said basically if they complete their work, they'll be counted present. It did not actually say you must log in, complete the work within the day that it was assigned, and turn it in that evening. So I actually reached out to the school. They would not revise the absences. My daughter is a straight A student. She doesn't have any issues with attendance. She's a good kid. And basically, they said that there was no way that they could turn over the absences that were recorded on her behalf. So I would like this addressed. I don't feel like it's a fair policy when you haven't actually spelled out the policy clearly for parents to be able, I mean, I had to hunt and search to even find like 2 documents, one that was a COVID addendum. The other was a student handbook, but neither one of them were super clear on exactly what we needed to do. They did not verbally tell us what we needed to do. So I don't feel like this is fair to hold her accountable when we didn't actually know what she was supposed to be doing in order to actually, she got all of the work finished and completed it. She made straight A's last semester, but she got counted like 7 absences. So what happens if she actually gets COVID? So that's one issue. I have a couple other issues that I'd like to bring to your attention. My daughter has ADHD. She also has anxiety. She's had anxiety since she was in 4th grade. She's actually, because of the COVID policy that they have where the kids cannot go to the bathroom in between classes, it's caused an issue with her. She's been marked tardy like 6 times to her class. Her psychologist basically said, going to the bathroom and giving yourself an emotional break sometimes is good for you. She actually has a doctor's note in her file. Again, we had an issue with one of her teachers not fixed. It was one specific teacher. It was her music teacher. She was coming, stopping in between the classes. She's on a different floor for a previous period. And she basically would stop to go to the bathroom and then go to the class. And as she was walking in the door, she was counted tardy. So I feel like this is, again, she's got a medical document in her file that states that she can take as many bathroom breaks as she needs because of her anxiety, and they would not fix this. And I think this needs to be addressed. I have another daughter that is in high school. She goes to Little Elm High School. She basically is an athlete that plays club volleyball. She's up usually at 5 a.m. She's on the bus by 6:30. She starts school at 7:15, and she had an issue with one of her teachers actually not allowing her to have a snack in class because the mask was off. She was saying that my daughter was being defiant and trying to be disrespectful, which is not the case. My daughter's a very respectful young lady, and she would never do that. She's just legitimately hungry. This is the very last class of the day. It's her art teacher. And so this is not like this is something where she's trying to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form, but she's been on the bus and at school for 8 hours. She has one break where she can eat. And okay. And then, so I feel like this is not acceptable. Like, these kids need to have opportunities to have a snack in the afternoon or in the morning if they need it. My daughter's a high athlete. She plays club volleyball. She practices 4 hours a week. She's doing 2-day tournaments on the weekend. My daughter's not trying to be disrespectful to anybody. She just really needs a snack. And so with the COVID rules, it basically states that they can't have their mask off except for at lunch, not in the hallway, not in class, but they do leave it up to teacher discretion. So I don't feel like it's a safety issue if it's left to teacher discretion. Some teachers let the kids have snacks, others don't. So I think that needs to be addressed. The last issue that I have is the Canvas versus portal. This is not a great experience for parents. I have 3 kids, one in Prestwick, one in the middle school, and then one in the high school. The 2 older ones are using Canvas and Parent Portal. And from my standpoint, as a parent, I'm very involved with my kids. I want to make sure that they're turning their stuff in on time. I want to support the teachers to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But there's not really an opportunity for me to do that if what is reflected in Canvas is actually, sometimes what happens is they mark it for the students that are online to turn something in, and then the actual students that are in class might have turned it in on paper, and it shows like it's missing. So what is in Canvas doesn't actually match up with what is in Portal. So it looks like it calculates different grades. It's very confusing from a parent's perspective. So I would really urge the school district to figure out one solution for grades and for tracking the kids' assignments, because as a parent, it's really difficult to know what is actually missing and what is not missing. And so just having, 2 different pieces of technology that don't talk to one another makes it very, very confusing for the parents. I can't, I've had probably 30 conversations with my 3 kids over the course of the last 2 semesters. Just trying to figure out, hey, it looks like this is missing. Nope, we turned that in online, or, in class. Oh, well, this says, and on the portal side, it doesn't seem like the teachers actually get the grades in very quickly because it's the grade book. And they don't really mark things that are missing as missing on the portal side. So it's not like I can go to one or the other to make sure that I'm helping my students be successful in school. And so I feel like it's really important that the school district figure this out, because if it's difficult for me, it's difficult for all 3,000 kids in the 2 schools that I have kids in. And so I thank you for your time. I feel like some of these things could easily be addressed, like allowing the kids to have a snack and allowing them to have a bathroom break in between classes. I don't think that's too much to ask. My daughter was super stressed out when she had to do the quarantine at home. And then on top of it, to get a truancy letter in the mail that basically said she was absent 7 days, even though she finished all of her work. It's not okay. So I have a copy of just sort of this for your board members, if you'd like.
That's perfect. Yeah, if you can provide that to Ms. Flores, she'll
Okay.
get that around to
And
us as well.
if you need additional information, you can definitely reach out. I can share additional information about this. But,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Smith. All right, so now we'll go ahead and have item 11H. Come up, Rick.
I'm not used
Do you
to
happen to know
it.
what page in the board book your presentation's on?
It's toward the back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
250, 247. Well, that was close.
It is in the back.
I'm not used to doing things this early in the meeting, so I'm
If he hasn't
working to
clicked it
catch up here. Let me know when you're ready.
yet. Go ahead.
Okay. We do have representatives from Corrigan here in case you have some questions about the indoor facility itself. They developed some vignettes of what it could look like from the outside and inside. Clay, have we got that? Say again? I dropped it into the Google Drive. Well, while Clay looks for that, in your packet, you do have the project budget that's being proposed. You also have a copy of the GMP from Jackson. They were going to be here tonight as well. I told them, don't worry about it. It's late in the session, so we're. Oh, good. JD, good, thank you. So any questions you have about design and/or construction and/or the budget, we should be able to answer those questions for you. This is a overall project budget, master budget of $19,500,000, which does include the GMP from Jackson for $16,927,000 and change. You'll see in the project budget, we include furniture, we include technology, we also include all of the systems that we need and verifications, the test and balance commissioning, all those issues. We also have an owner's contingency that's a part of the master budget that's outside of the GMP. Those are for things that come up that are either city-related, here we go, or other items that may come up. Here's a general site plan. The large blue box is the indoor facility itself. The smaller gray box to the bottom of that is a 2-story locker room, weight room addition. And in visiting with Sandra and when working through the development of this is a facility for all of the exterior sports, all the outdoor sports. The indoor sports will still have space inside the school itself for basketball, volleyball. This again is all the exterior sports. We will have a fire lane that goes all the way around it and ties back into the lot that's on the east side of the school. You can see the tennis courts down there at the south end of the site. It's a little more construction related, but it does give you the relationship of the new facility to the tennis courts and the baseball fields. Making use of that corner back there. A little more detail of the building itself, showing the access and the doors. This is an elevation view from the tennis courts. Goes into the locker room, one of the locker rooms. It's the practice facility itself. As you can see, it's a free span. Correct me if I'm wrong, is this a 70-yard field or 60? 70-yard field. And it'll have the batting cages, the net systems that will suspend from the ceiling. You can see those at the far end. This is the weight room minus the weights. Put the weights in, we'll be able to see everybody. Okay, that's just kind of a taste of what we have. The civil plans are into the city for review. And once we get their blessing on the civils, they'll allow us to submit the building plans. And so we'll be proceeding with the permit as soon as we can get it pulled. That gives us plenty of time to get paperwork and things put together. But we're expecting to be able to get started right after the first of the year. So the administration recommends approval of the budget as presented and authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate and execute any required contract documents.
We have a motion to accept. Mr. English, is there a second?
Second.
Is there questions?
Yeah, I have a question around, once we move everything in and the space is currently the weight room that's currently at the high school, we move everything into the new facility. What is the plan for the current weight room?
Some of that will remain for the indoor sports.
Okay.
But we've talked with, I know that we need to try to expand the welding shop, which butts up to the south wall of that facility. We've talked about, there's a classroom that's in the welding shop now. We talked about taking that space and moving it into the south end of the existing weight room. So a portion of that weight room would be taken up as a classroom for the welding shop. Then the current classroom goes away so we can expand the shop.
Okay.
That's the thought process right now.
Okay.
There'll also be some areas, locker room areas in the facility. Right now, they're temporarily housing the wrestling over at the middle school, the LMS. There's a hope that we can be able to come in and capture some of that space so we can keep all those high school sports in the school there. So there's some further renovation work that we're expected to do.
Right. And typically, athletically speaking, there's a need for two weight rooms, one main and then one auxiliary.
Right.
And that's what I was going to mention. So, because I would want like the coaches to have some say into that, because I know there's already a conflict in getting girls into the weight room and boys as well. And some get the short end of the stick at times.
That was my point. That's what I want to understand.
Especially at our level at 6A, you don't find high schools or districts with just one weight room.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the indoor sports or
Yep.
spring sports or boys and girls.
Rick, with the January start, what's the timeline for construction?
JD?
Right now, we're looking at, if we start in January, it'll be, October-ish, Mr. Mayor, he goes with the permitting and everything.
I don't have any I don't think we'll have any permitting problems for the most part. We've got a good relationship with the town, so
It's just
Roughly.
them getting through it. That's
I
the,
know. So roughly, you're thinking 9 to 10 months.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And with that, I think that kind of piggybacking on the weight. So equipment, FF&E, is that in this also for new weight equipment so that we'll have some in the indoor facility and
yes.
if we were to keep the second room? Okay.
And we have a conference room, we have coaches' offices, we
Right,
have
yeah.
all the locker rooms, all that
Yeah.
requires
No,
FF&E.
I figured that was in it. I was just thinking of the weight equipment because if we're not going to move everything, we're going to have double up. So I wanted to make sure that was included in this figure.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
That October timeframe you're just talking about, is that inclusion of contingency plans for weather and everything else, or is that just what you're?
We factor in some weather into that. All that's captured in there. Obviously, we can't control it all.
Right.
But yes, we do factor in some weather contingencies in that.
I would venture to say this, given that as a possibility, that it probably wouldn't be available until the second semester.
So ultimately, the facility is going to be used for football if they needed for like weather events, band, if again, weather event. What other what other sports may go in there if needed? Any?
I assume soccer can do it. I assume baseball will be in there, golf will be in there. Those batting nets and things that come down, all those different groups could use it, sure.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
technically, I mean, it's like, I think he said,
No,
it's
the nets are
any
self-contained.
outdoor at sporting team that we have will have access into the facility.
I think your marching band would have the ability to use it as well.
Well, yeah,
Mr.
that
Roberts.
was the whole point. That was also the whole point is during that weather activities, the band and fine arts would have access into it.
You want to
All
add,
outdoor sporting.
Mr. Roberts, you want to add anything to that regarding athletics?
Yeah, so
You want to use a microphone?
you can get multiple groups in there and separated. The facilities that we've actually gone and looked at kind of over the years. Now, I know I haven't talked with Mr. Martin, so I don't know exactly what we're talking about, but I've seen where home plates for softball and baseball have been sewn in to the turf. I've seen nets where you can divide whole sections of this facility so that you can have a girls softball team going on in one corner and a boys baseball team going on in one corner, and then you could have soccer as well. So they're very, very efficient with the number of people you can run through there and everything you can get done.
With that, is there the drop down, like the drape thing that comes down to split? Have you seen that? Like
To
at the
where you
rec
could have
center?
two groups.
Right now, I don't believe it is. There are drop-down nets for batting cages
Yeah.
and
Right.
for the golf practicing and pitching, but I don't believe there's a divider. It's pretty big space to try to put a divider in like that.
I think, yeah, Ms. Myers, are you referring to more of a, obviously a flexible, almost roll, kind of solid,
Yeah, so
more?
if you've been to the rec center, you've seen the drop down net that splits the courts, two half courts. I was just wondering if that's an option or not, so that you could split the facility and have more than just.
They have those in Hershey's Bedford that's where I've gone
Mhm.
and looked at those where the nets have dropped down where you can.
Right. I didn't know. if that
I
was
do
something
think that's
else.
something we probably want to look at because as you're talking about the different sports, it's also, think about drill team, our cheerleaders. What's going to happen is this facility, this space, there's going to be more people that want to use it than we have the ability to. So to be able to partition it maybe into halves or even fourths would be really beneficial for our groups. Especially right now, we don't have a third gym. This space is really going to be needed.
I will say that was not part of the program we were given, but we can certainly look at it.
Okay.
Good
I
news
would
is
just
we
be
haven't
interested to
started
see-
construction.
Yeah, cost wise, if that was possible, because especially if you have band and like, let's say you have a small group of band in there and then wrestling or something, maybe you want, separate it out, or a girl's sport versus a boy's sport, then that way it's separated. Just
And
a-
I want to be clear, I'm not referring to nets. I'm referring to
Drop down tar, canvas.
Yes.
Canvas
material,
type.
yeah.
not a net.
No, not
but-
that, it actually a drop
Yeah.
down curtain.
It's like a divider curtain in a gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
We'll have to look into that because there's weight distribution there that'll have to be with that long open span, clear span.
When I noticed there was fans in the drawing, so I don't know. That would be an issue too.
Well,
But-
You don't have to go all the way up, but
The
there
ones
will
that
be
I've
some
seen
weight.
are actually open. They are a net portion on the top and then the bottom is
Right.
the, you can't see through canvas kind of thing.
Just think of something that is wide as the football field.
Right.
And how much weight that's going to be when it rolls up on something that's a slender, long span like that. But we've got to look into that.
Okay.
A question about the contingency. You mentioned y'all are used to having contingency for weather, but what about the COVID delays caused by COVID?
That's a big unknown. Really, the only thing COVID-wise we're anticipating is just some increase in possibly steel and some other numbers. It's not affected in this right now, but as far as delays, we honestly, on our projects, have not seen any. We, at this point, we haven't seen anything from ourselves indicating that it's gonna extend it, no. The biggest question we have, just for Little M, is just the soils here. They're always, tend to-
Challenging.
Yes.
Challenging.
Yes, so.
Well, I'm glad
That's our
you,
biggest concern.
Dr. Thompson, Joe.
No, go.
So I'm glad you brought, because that was actually on my list, and knowing what we just went through with the baseball field and
Well, we have the pylon, we got how many pylons we have to add to the, was that wall? We have to add additional pylon to?
yeah, I think Walker did, but I mean, we're dealing with the soil that's right next to the baseball field, which when we did that, we had all sorts of issues. So is that, have they been fully briefed on the issues we had? on the soil?
They actually are the ones, Jackson did the
Did the baseball.
did the
Okay.
concession and the area in there in the concourse. So they're familiar with, they watched Hellas struggle through multiple rounds of soil treatment and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they've got that covered. But the
Okay.
question about the COVID, that's really like on the middle schools, it's still affecting getting materials from other states. We haven't seen in the last, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't seen any COVID-related absences from the subs on the job sites for the past several months. We had quite a few back in the summer, but then they undertook protocols and things that they had to start doing as they approached the site to help hold that down and mitigate that problem. So I think probably the biggest thing we're going to look at is maybe getting materials from other states. That could be a challenge, but I think manpower on site, I think the protocols are in place to keep them going.
I did have a follow-up question to Ms. Meyer's question before. So I heard a lot of what can be done with the space. Who's going to call this space home?
It is basically an athletic facility.
But
So there's going to be,
Because there
whose
are-
locker room's going to be out there?
Multi-purpose indoor facility.
We've been calling it an indoor facility. That's what we've been calling it. How I get,
I've also heard it's going to relieve space demands within the school. So
Correct.
who is going from inside the school to this multi-use space?
outdoor sports.
It depends on scheduling.
Football,
And
soccer, baseball,
Football, baseball,
will move
soccer.
outside.
yeah, you're going to,
Their locker room, their weight room, that's going to be out in this area.
Well, I
That's
think
correct.
it's still, I would still envision the weight rooms to be kind of scheduled between all the sports, not just necessarily these teams have this one, these teams have this one. I think it's going to be probably, well, the athletic department, I would assume, would be making some scheduling for all the groups based upon size, equipment, time of the year, et cetera, so that competitions, et cetera, so we adequately use all that. But then, that's what I would envision. And then, yes, athletics will be housed out there.
Yeah.
They'll probably run the scheduling of everything so that whenever band, drill,
that's correct.
cheer, whoever needs time, they'll go through the athletic department to schedule time in those particular areas. And once again, they'll probably have a master schedule of everything.
Yeah, it won't be a football facility, even though obviously you're going to have lines painted. it is going to be truly a multipurpose facility that other groups and organizations can use. Because I think
So when the baseball, football, soccer team goes to their practice period, that's where they're going to go.
depends on the scheduling.
Schedule,
Depends on the
weather.
scheduling.
I mean,
Yeah.
we still have, I mean, soccer team usually practices out on the other field on the other side of the baseball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, soccer team would probably still, on good days, be practicing out there during soccer season.
Same thing with
They'll
football.
go suit out in the
But like
locker room that's
today,
out there.
no. Today, they'll probably want to definitely go indoors for sure and practice indoors.
I will tell you that the design of the first floor has the weight room on the first floor, and it's accessible by a central corridor. You don't have to go through a locker room to get to it. So anybody can access it that's allowed to have access to that locker room at any time, basically, without having to go through any lockers or any other practice areas. So it's been designed so that all groups could use it just about any time.
Any other questions?
Mm-mm.
All right, so all those in favor of approving this project budget as presented?
Hold on, keep your hands up.
Sorry? So all those in favor of this project?
Yep.
All yeas that are present. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, that's all. Did your guests arrive? That's for item 11D, right? Right, that 11D?
D as in David.
Yeah, so we're moving item 11D up to before reports to superintendent.
Good evening, Board Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher. Yes, Dan Ton is here from our external auditor. He's going to present the audit for last year.
Grant, by chance, you happen to know what page it's on?
No, I don't, not in the books.
Okay. Oh, I found it, I think. 102.
You've also got a hard copy.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and go over the audit with you. We completed the audit right around the 1st of November and have been working on the report and all of the other required items. The audit went very well. There were no problems encountered during the audit, other than some quarantining and a few things like that we're all dealing with. But we were able to get everything done. We did a lot of things remotely this year. Beth Euler and her staff were very helpful in doing that. So there were no problems in terms of getting the audit finished. No problems with internal controls or transactions or anything of that nature. So from that standpoint, it went very well. The district is in good financial condition, had a good year financially, and we'll look at that as we go through some of the numbers. I want to start in the audit on page 5. Pages 5 and 6 are our independent auditors report. This report is what's referred to as an unmodified report. That's the highest level of reporting that you can receive as a governmental entity. Unmodified means that no modifications were necessary to the standard clean audit report for compliance findings or any of that nature. So it's an excellent report. The next section of the audit starts on page 7. It's called Management's Discussion and Analysis. I'm not going to go through a lot of this because we're going to see the same numbers as we go through the financial statements. But a lot of the management's discussion and analysis just provides analysis and describes what are presented in the different financial statements. There are several different types of financial statements, and we'll talk about that as we look at them. On page 10 and 11, there's some comparative information that shows both fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. Page 11 is the revenues and expenditures. This audit reflects the first year of House Bill 2. So obviously your expenses went up due to the salary demands of HB 3. Did I say HB 2 the first time? I meant HB 3. Your property taxes continue to grow. It's kind of interesting to look at the property tax collections. Your maintenance and operations collections actually went up almost $2 million. And you'll remember that a big part of HB 3 was to compress your maintenance and operations tax rate to lower local property taxes. But because you had an 11% increase in property values, even though your rate decreased from roughly $1.17 to $1.06, the increase in property values offset that, and you actually collected more in local property taxes than you did the previous year. Not all of that 11% is increase in value of existing properties. That was a big issue with the legislature. A lot of that 11% is new property. So all of your existing properties didn't necessarily go up 11%, but your overall taxable value was up 11%. And so that allowed you to increase your local property collections. The first thing I want to look at on the financial statements are what are referred to as the fund financial statements. Those begin on page 20. Page 20 and 21 presents your individual funds on a fund-by-fund basis. On page 20, you have the general fund, which is the primary fund of the district, the debt service fund, the capital projects fund, and then other funds are your smaller funds, primarily grant funds and things of that nature. Your general fund, the second number from the bottom, you ended the year with $29.6 million of fund balance. $8 million of that has been assigned for future construction projects. You have $51,000 that is non-spendable because it is made up of inventory. And then your unassigned fund balance is $21.6 million. That's a very healthy amount for a district your size. That unassigned fund balance is, I'm going to tell you what percent of your expenditures that was. That was 31.2% of your expenditures. So that's almost 4 months of operating expenses. It's between 3 months and 4 months. That's generally considered a very healthy amount for local government. Your debt service fund ended the year with $7 million in fund balance, and your capital projects fund ended the year with $52 million in fund balance. And in the capital projects fund, that's represents really your unspent bond proceeds and some internal transfers. So that's obviously designated for construction projects and things of that nature. And you can see that on page 24 and 25. These statements show the revenues and expenditures of the funds. Your general fund had an excess revenue over expenditures of about $8.9 million before transfers. 8.5, almost 8.6 million was transferred to other funds. And so your net change in the general fund balance was $368,000. The debt service fund shows several transactions. You did a bond refunding during 2020. It was a fairly large refunding. It was very favorable to the district. I want to look at that. On page 48, we talk about the refunding. The The refunding resulted in an economic gain, which is the present value of the difference in the old debt service and the new debt service of 8.8 million. So that's a very positive, will help the district over the coming years. And because interest rates are so low, you achieved an $8.8 million savings on a $50 million refunding. That's a pretty high percentage of savings. You also issued new bonds in the Capital Projects Fund. You can see there it was about $20 million of new money. And you spent $111 million or $112 million on projects, primarily the 2 new middle schools, as well as completion of the transportation facility. So your capital projects fund actually decreased by $82 million. Now I want to look back just a couple of pages at what we call the government-wide financial statements. Those begin on page 17. These take all of your individual funds, combine them into one presentation. They add in your capital assets and your long-term debt. Capital assets and long-term debt are not included in the fund financial statements, but they are brought in and included in the government-wide. You can see at the very bottom number, the first column, your governmental activities. You ended the year with a net position of 10.6 million. There was 38 million of negative unrestricted net position. The negative unrestricted amount is caused primarily because of the pension and OPEB liability that's required to be recorded under the GASB accounting standards. The pension liability was 20.3 million, and the OPEB liability is 23 million. You may not remember, you may be asking, what is an OPEB? That stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. And for Texas school districts, that is the TRS Cares Retired Employees Healthcare Program. As employees work through their career, they pay into the fund, and the district pays into the fund, and they are provided retiree health insurance with those funds. So there's a liability related to that. And so TEA recognizes that, and when you get your report from Grant on your first report, those liabilities are added back to your net position so that it erases that negative net position or the unrestricted net position. You have positive overall net position. The footnotes follow all of those statements, and I'm not going to go through those. We looked at the debt footnote just a minute to pull out that savings on the refunding. Your debt detail is on page 47. Shows the bonds that are outstanding. There's a footnote on the pension liability. There's a footnote on the OPEB liability. Those are fairly long and involved. So there's a lot of information there if you want to go back and look through there. The last thing I want to cover is the federal awards section. Well, while I'm flipping over there, let's look at page 82 real quickly. That shows that taxable value increase that I was talking about. On page 82, column 3 is your assessed appraised value for tax purposes. You can see that your taxable value went up from 4.7 billion to 5.2 billion. It's about an 11% increase. And that also shows in column 1 the tax rate compression that was required under House Bill 3. Your local M&O rate went from $1.17 to $1.683. And then for this current fiscal year that we're in right now, it was compressed even further to about 94, I think, something like that. The federal award section starts on page 89. There are two different reports. Because you receive both federal grants and state grants, we are required under government auditing standards on page 89 to do some additional work on those grants. And then on page 91, there's a second report that deals with major federal programs. And a major program is just defined as a program that we as the auditors select to be audited more in detail than the normal grants. We look at all the grants, but we're required to select major programs and look at those in greater detail. And those are selected on a rotation basis based on the size of the program, so that all programs over a certain amount are audited as major at least once every 3 years. On page 93, you can see there were no findings or internal control issues. The major programs that were audited as major in 2020 was your child nutrition cluster, which is school breakfast and lunch programs, and then the new CARES Act stimulus grant, which was new in 2020 as part of the funding provided through the CARES Act. So again, both of those reports are unmodified. There's no findings. And finally, the last thing I want to point out is on page 95. This is a schedule of all of your federal awards. You can see that you received $5.3 million in federal grants. That's all I'm going to go into in detail. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
I was going to make a motion first.
Okay.
I think you might have an opportunity. Administration recommends approval of the annual financial report for the year end August 31st, 2020 as submitted.
There a motion to approve? Jason, is there a second? Deleon, any questions over this audit?
Oh, yeah, let me address that. Yeah, sure. We have a great office, and I do want to give Beth Euler and a lot of credit to the audit. This is one of her projects, and she takes it from beginning to the end, and she deserves a huge credit for this.
Well, it's great to be able to, if you have money in the district and then lower taxes for our community. So, big win for everybody.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
All right, all those in favor of approving the audit as presented? Everyone present? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and.
Well, thank
coming out
you.
here to present this to us.
It's always a pleasure to work with the district, and I second Grant's comments, Beth and her entire staff. They do a great job and are very helpful in getting the audit done. Thank you, Beth.
All right, so then we'll continue on with the reports from the superintendent.
Yes, President Montemayor, and board members, at this time, I'd like to ask Cecilia Jones, our Director for Communications, to come to the podium to give an update on communications in the district. So, Ms. Jones.
Good evening, President Montemayor, board members. Welcome, Dr. Thompson, to the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher. Today, I would like to give you an update on what we've been doing in our communications office. You notice that we've been really busy sending out communication, but it's a lot more than that. So really, we want to talk about the focus on community engagement. And we want to show you that we're keeping information at the center of what we do. So a couple of things that I'd like to discuss with you today is what we're doing with grade level teacher pages and give you an update on our COVID communication. Casey and I, we're always brainstorming on how we can do things better in our office. It's one of the things that, we always keep the families and our customers at the center of what we do. And our whole thing is we want to make navigating our website the easiest that it can be. And we want it to be customer friendly. And so as we've had this website for quite some time, we've noticed that teacher pages on the elementary side of things could be better. There's things that we could do a lot better. So one of the things that we liked is creating grade level pages. And what this would do is it would help families search for teachers in two ways. One, the directory to find a teacher by their name would not go away. But we also want our families to be able to find them by grade levels. So as you see on your screen, this is an example of what Casey has put together. This is the second grade team at Brent. And so what we're doing is we're taking a team picture, and it's going to be one place where they can get their information. So you can see that this is the second grade team down below, and I can navigate to the actual website. So down below is a list of all the teachers. If you click on View Website, you're still going to access their teacher profile page. The reason why we want to do this is we believe that this creates a one-stop shop for parents, cohesiveness, and it gives teachers a place to post announcements. I am a parent of Chavez kids, and I receive newsletters from our first grade teacher team. And this is just another place for them to put that information, so it's an easy place for them to access. We began working on this project in October. So far, we've laid the groundwork at Brent and Chavez. The goal, as long as things run smoothly, is to have everything complete by spring break so it's ready to go. And we can promote it for the 21-22 school year. Well, that's hard to say. All right, now let's talk about COVID. This is, as you know, since March, this has been a very complex situation. Just navigating the situation itself has been complex. And I will have to say that from a communication standpoint, it has had its challenges as well. So our thing is about simplifying a complex situation in such a challenging time. So I want to give you an idea of our communication breakdown when it comes to COVID. My office is sending out daily screening emails to staff where teachers fill out a Google form and they check the boxes. Yes, I've got symptoms. No, I don't. If they don't, they will receive a phone call, or in my case, one time I got a nudge from Ross. Fill out your screen before you come to work. Every Monday, I do send out a reminder to our community about checking the COVID dashboard, which is updated manually at 4 o'clock. Sometimes we try to target that date, but we do it by 4 o'clock. And then in addition to any COVID cases, we send out quarantine information communication. We send out class communication. And then beyond that, staff emails and our principals communicate to staff as well. I just wanted to give you a snapshot from September 1 to December 8th. I just pulled data. I find data to be very interesting. It just gives you the big picture. So what you see in front of you, the days that are in yellow, or in your case, green, those are the days that we were sending out messages. And over to the right in the red are the number of messages that were sent out for that month. On average, I'm probably sending out 5 to 6 messages. Today has to be my biggest day yet. I lost count after 12 o'clock. I probably, if I had to guess, I sent out 11 messages at least today. I think we're seeing kind of what's happened after Thanksgiving, and we're seeing those COVID cases increase. So today was probably one of my busiest days. I'm thankful that Christmas break is coming up. But we stay on top of it. We are sending out messages by 3:30 for the class communication, and anytime I get a quarantine, I'm sending that out immediately. In addition, we want our families to understand what's happening in our district. Early on, we talked about, how can we keep our community informed? And the dashboard is, it came up. We wanted to create something that was forward-facing, that we would update daily by 4 p.m. So over to the left is the active positive COVID cases dashboard. It just kind of gives you a snapshot of the numbers.
These also, I want to point out, if you already said this, I apologize, but this is just a screenshot. This is not a live,
Right.
because our student cases have increased today.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that
So
too.
these were all screenshot December 8th. So these were last week's numbers. Again, I want to mention that these are manually updated every business day before 4 p.m. And then over to the right, you can see the graph where you can see the fluctuation in cases in students and staff. And what this does is it serves as a variety of purposes, such as giving a visual of the constant fluctuation of cases throughout the 9 weeks. What you see on our website is the current 9-week period, and then we archive the old. So it's still accessible, so you can go back to even August. We're getting ready to archive this, and then we'll move into our new 9 weeks when spring semester begins.
So beneath, and for those watching, as you go to the active cases, right beneath the active cases, it says COVID cases archive, and it does it. So it's actually the same visual, just goes back all the way to the first week of school. And
one of the reasons why we did that is we learned that when we were trying to put all that information out, we were losing our dates. So the dates would disappear, and so you didn't really know what you were looking at. So in order for us to give as much information, we felt the best solution was to archive the information. And then, the staff active cases, we want our parents to see the real-time information that we're giving so they can have a peace of mind knowing that we're reporting those adult cases as well. So in our office, it's continuous communication, improvement all the time. We want to keep COVID on the minds of all of our community members. We've done 3 Ask the Superintendent videos, Mr. Gallagher and I. I think the last one we did was with Tony Nelson, our health coordinator for the district. One of the questions we got was, how do you close contact? What do you mean my child wasn't in close contact? They were in the same classroom. So we felt like we needed to explain, according to CDC and the TEA, what we go through or what Tony goes through when she's determining the close contacts. So that's a video that's out there. Our focus is to create simplified messages. We know that our parents are working parents. I come from the world of television news, where at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, your parents are cooking, or people are cooking dinner. They don't have time to read a lengthy letter. My whole scenario is make 3 points, get out. That's creating simplified messaging. That way you get what you need and you can move on with your life. Like I said earlier, we want to make sure that we create information on our website that is easy to find. We don't want people digging around for the information that they need. And then staying connected. During COVID, it has been a real challenge to get out to campuses and report the stories that are happening on our school campuses. But I do my best to watch all the campuses, which are doing a tremendous job keeping that social engagement on Facebook. And so I try to share or I follow up with a story. There was one recently at Lakeview where the lead custodian was giving the Golden Trash Can Award for kids that were keeping a clean cafeteria. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. It tugged at my heart. I took my video camera and I went out there and I told the story. So that's ways that we can stay connected with our campuses. And then engagements with our community. One of the goals before the winter break is to make sure that our campuses are holding community engagements with parents. And so most of them have sent out a thought exchange where it is unfiltered and raw thoughts about what they're feeling on the current condition and how school's going for them. And that's really it. And that's Larry Lobo with his mask on behind the screen, if you didn't notice.
With the 60% alcohol thing at the back.
Yes.
That's hand sanitizer we're focused on there.
Bad night out or what?
Yes, ma'am.
So on the,
Microphone.
the pages for the.
Money,
I'm sorry.
your microphone.
Hit the button on your, there you go.
I still forget.
There you go.
I'm
That's great.
green.
Yes, you're green. That's good.
I'm green and I have a mask off. Y'all can hear me.
Yes,
Slide up.
ma'am.
Okay. I actually, I've heard a lot of conversation from other parents about being confused about going. So the general information on the site helps you know the number of cases and that kind of thing. But like you said, then there was a kid in my kid's class. If that happens, what do I do? How do parents get to, for example, if they go to the COVID site right now, it tells them the number of cases, but where do they go if they think that their student might have been affected? Like, how do they know what steps to take?
So let me give you an example.
Like if they're not sure, so if they don't know for sure that
They
their
will
child should
know.
go to school, well, not should they go, but what should their child be doing? Some are confused about, well, what does my child do? Step 1, step 2, step 3.
So let me see if I can answer your question.
Okay.
If you're saying that if a child is in a classroom that is in a no close contact situation, they haven't been in.
Child is sent home.
Uh-huh.
Not sent home, quarantine. If they realize, oh, you're not quarantine, how do they look here for my step 1, step 2, step 3?
So in my,
They need to go to the teacher page.
Yeah.
So the teacher has step 1, step 2.
So in my letter, it's really a follow-up letter, and it comes after the conversations that Tony Nelson or that campus nurse is having with that student. They pick up the phone and they have a personal conversation with every single family member, not every single, but every family member that has a quarantined child. And they tell them what they need to do, what date they can return. And then they also let them know that the teacher will be in contact with them about next steps. That is what I'm being told. And then I reiterate that in my letter. You will be contacted by your teacher about your next steps. And so the campus principals know that their teachers need to get a message out immediately to those students about what it is they need to know. I'll give you an example. Early on, when Mr. Richardson over at Hackberry had a few kids, actually it was an entire class that had to be quarantined. It's happened quite a bit ago. And it was that evening, he brought those teachers in, they put together those go bags, and he had them delivered to the houses of those kids. And so in those go bags have the curriculum that they need in order for them to complete the lessons and the tasks for the next 14 days while they're on quarantine. I feel like our principals know that they need to be in lockstep with their teachers anytime a kid is quarantined, and that teacher needs to be in contact with that child.
So one question I had, so obviously I had a child that was quarantined. What I was wondering, is there a way, because we did get the email communication, we did get the phone call from the nurse, and I think this probably goes to what Ms. Metz was speaking to as well. Once we got that information, there was no follow-up. Now, again, my kids are secondary and high school, so that means an email or a phone call from every single teacher, every class period. So that's probably a little high achieving. I doubt that's going to happen. But really, come Monday morning, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what she was supposed to be doing.
Dr. Mecca, do you mind?
And so I think that's where I was going to ask, within that communication, can there be something that says, here's specific steps that you'll take come Monday morning for your child, what they need to do, where they need to go? Because I think her confusion as an 8th grader was, well, I'm just staying home and I'm going to sleep in till noon. Great. Instead of knowing exactly where she needed to go.
Yeah, and so after the board meeting where you brought that to our attention, we actually created a document that is supposed to go home with the student when they are picked up from school. It's called Quarantine Students Attendance procedures for parents. And so we had asked the principals to make stacks in PDF in the English and Spanish so that when the parents came to pick up the students, that they could collect those, and that if a student was already at home when they were quarantined and hadn't come to school, when they got the call, then those were supposed to be emailed to the parents. So after I was working over there during the presentations a minute ago. And so we have already updated the webpage. We've actually put the PDF of that on the web. That may not be on the webpage yet.
It's not this, the flip
It's
plan.
not, but the Return to Learn Parent Guide is already updated with it in the appendix, and that is already on the webpage. And so after the feedback tonight, we've made that other step. And then I've sent out a newsletter to the principals every week, and I've already put it in the principals' newsletter
Right there.
to get it into their newsletters.
Okay.
So
You already have it in this, Dr.
But the
Mecca?
Return to Learn Guide, it's appendix right there. So it's, no, it hadn't updated yet. It should be there.
When did this go live?
This has been on the website since September?
Since August.
August?
But then when,
In the committee, we talked about making sure that they had the want to stress.
Mhm.
We want to stress to make sure that the parents have the ability to know that once the kids either got sick or quarantined.
And we wanted to create a one-stop shop, which is why we have this parent
I know
guide.
there's miscommunication is happening, but the information.
Well,
is
I
out
think,
there.
Yeah, it's
I
different
think-
places. You heard it earlier.
yeah.
Thompson's here.
Yes, exactly.
But I
Yeah,
think
it's-
I think for me, the challenge is, as a working parent, I don't want to go search for those things. I can't go. I have 3 kids. I just don't have the time to go search. And I think that's what a lot of our parents, that's the challenge. If my kid has to stay home and be quarantined, I need to have somebody tell me, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's what your child needs to do. So I can, if they're older kids, I can go to them and say, here you go. And then get them on their path. Younger, obviously, they need a little more handholding. But that was my only question, is if something will go out to those parents.
I agree
So-
to some extent, you know.
So here's the
Well, I have
document.
3 kids going through this. You have none.
Actually, I do.
Well,
I
but
have
yeah,
3
in
kids going
college,
through it in college,
yes.
same thing, right?
But yes, but just not high school or in, elementary
Which is,
age.
college is a whole different state. What
Correct.
we do now, college doesn't do any of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They
I
do
get-
nothing, so we have no idea.
Right.
And
So
you're paying
here
for
is
college.
here's the
Yeah,
document,
exactly.
here's the document that we prepared for the school nurses, the principals, the teachers. And it lays out the different ways that a student can be counted present during, and then the work that, they have until 11:59 PM each day to submit that work for the day. And so this is the document right here. We have it in, copied off for the school nurses. They're supposed to give it to the parents and go over it when they make that phone call. We also have it translated in Spanish. And so, but like I said, we're all learning through this. And so as soon as she left, I started working, and this is actually live on the web right now. And there will be a separate link this is in the Return to Learn Parent Guide I updated this evening. And then also on the Lobos Learn 2020, it will live there in that Lobos Learn menu right about here. So that should be updated tomorrow morning when our webmaster comes in, Casey. So,
So this is what they do when the teacher does call the parent, they should be pointing them to this, so.
well, yes, the first thing that should happen is that all school nurses and via Tony Nelson have been told that when they call a parent and tell them that they are going out on quarantine, they are supposed to go over these steps with them by phone. And then if the parent comes to pick up the student, they are supposed to be handed a paper copy of it. Because we know that when you get that phone call, your mind isn't always on everything that is being verbally told to you over the phone. Your heart rate's gone up, you are stressed that your child is quarantined, you're worried about them, you're starting to think, what do I need to do? Do I need to go get them tested? And so all of those other instincts of being a mom or a dad pop in. So that's why we wanted them to be handed or emailed this document so that they would have it in their hands, per se, and they would be able to review it at a later, when blood pressure calms down in their home and they're able to review it. And so, but we'll do better. We'll get it out in as many means as we can besides just the website and relying on the nurses and teachers to get it out.
And don't get me wrong, because I think from the conversations I've had with parents, our district is probably one of the best with communication. And I've talked to a lot of parents out like Dallas, Louisville, Denton, that they're shocked at how much stuff we have on our website, how many, policies, how many updates we have. They're just, wow, you guys know exactly what's going on in your district. So very impressed with everything that's out there. And that's why I just brought up that one point, and that would just help a little bit, ease the minds of some parents when they do get that call. It just gives them a little bit of direction, because it can be a little alarming and very confusing to try to figure out, what do I do now? But.
And unfortunately, I think, and Mrs. Myers, I think those are good points. Unfortunately, I don't want to alarm anyone, but I do, as we saw today, our numbers have gone up, which means there will be more students and adults that may need to be quarantined. And I don't see that letting up. Hopefully it will sometime after Christmas break, but we saw with Thanksgiving break, the numbers shot up. So we can see or anticipate Christmas break, probably the same thing. So we'll have more families experiencing that.
Quick, so I want to make sure I understand. So the nurse calls, the teacher calls, and then do the parents and all the guardians get an email explaining to them that you should have gotten a nurse call by now, you should have gotten a teacher call by now, and if your student is in this grade, here's what to expect versus if your student is in that grade? Do they get an email saying?
Well, no, I don't know if they get the email detailing that, but I do know, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
yes.
we get an email that it basically states, well, there's two different emails. One is for generic, your child was in a classroom but there was no contact tracing
yes.
with that individual. So that one is a little bit different. So obviously they're not quarantined. The one where they are within close contact, you get that email after the phone call from the nurse that says your child will be quarantined for a period of time.
And what the nurse will do is direct to that information. Make sure
Just the
they have
email
all that.
direct.
Yeah, so that they have all the information about what they're supposed to do, in class, out of class, et cetera.
The email I send out does not include that. I'm assuming that the teachers do, or like Dr. Mecker said, maybe the nurses go over verbally. But what you're saying is a follow-up email would be nice.
Including that link, because the link is refreshed, and whenever you click, it's a Google Doc. So anytime you update it, it's immediately updated. So if it's included that link, then they could just click on that link, and it would, whatever changes that you've been continuously making, they would have the most recent copy of that right there in that first email.
Right.
You do have in your email, this link to.
No, I don't, but I can do it. Yes,
That's a good idea.
I can revamp it
Just,
a little,
it's another area to go for
Sure.
questions.
I just want to make sure that, like Dr. Mika said, as a parent of 4 kids, and I want to make sure that the information is as simple as it can be. So I'm going to get with Dr. Mika and Ross and find out exactly what's being told, and then we can go from there and make it better. That's it.
Great job. And that's what it's about. It's about making it better, always improving. Yeah, I do want to brag just for a minute on Cecilia and her team, Casey, and just the work that they're doing. And it really isn't just Cecilia with this. It's the whole COVID team. We have an entire team of people working on the COVID protocols. And, we just reminisced about this the other day. We had the first week of school, the first 5 days, we had an entire team in one of the PL rooms from the start of the day till the end of the day, working through the very first COVID cases that we received, that we had in the district. So great job. So thank you so much. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Rod Reeves to come up and go over the third quarter growth report.
Thank you, Superintendent Gallagher and members of the board. Just here to go over see if we can bring it up. Third quarter growth report. Remember, this third quarter growth report is what we call our snapshot. This is that benchmark for all the 3 other growth reports that will happen after this. I'm not going to go over every slide, so I know you're upset about that, but I'm just going to hit some highlights. So if we look at page 2 here, LASD has added just 49 students this year. And so that's just a 0.6% growth rate. So it's different than we've seen in past years, and that's because of COVID. And we see historical lows in our pre-K and kindergarten areas. And so you'll see later on in some slides, we're about negative 3% growth we've seen in our elementary grade levels. Now, our secondary campuses, we've seen increases actually. And so that's kind of offset the two. Most districts and urban areas, we've seen about a 5 to 6% student enrollment decline in their projections. And so we still have a positive growth rate. Go to page 4. We look at the impacts of COVID nationally since January 2018. You kind of see us kind of rising. All of a sudden, boom, we fall off the edge of this year. And so that's just due to COVID. And so the unemployment began to rise, though. You can see back in May, adding about 2.7 million jobs, but 4.8 million were added in June. And so that's leveling off because states have kind of reopened. However, we are seeing some of that peaks again in certain states after Thanksgiving break. So that may decline in our fourth quarter. If we go to page 5, it just represents the DFW year-over-year unemployment rate. If you look over on the right side of your chart there, you'll see the top kind of light color graph represents the unemployment rate now. And then that one right below it represents what it was last year at that time. So the top is the USA, and then it goes all the way down to Denton County. And in Denton County, for example, we're at 6.6% unemployment rate, whereas last year we were at 2.9%. If we look at page 6, just shows the COVID housing market and the DFW area. And believe it or not, it remains extremely high in the DFW area. And so that's because the interest rates are just so low. So people are still getting great deals on homes. So we're seeing that market still grow. The inventory is still lagging a little bit, because people are scared to get out too far in front of this and not sure how far or how long it's going to take to turn things around. This is the Little Elm ISD housing market. We have seen a decrease year over year, and that's mainly due to COVID and also because of build out. Remember, we're building out in our district. The one area that still has a lot of growth is that Oak Point zone. This is the Little Elm ISD housing activity. We had 179 starts in the third quarter and 244 closings in the third quarter, and those are both down from the previous year. We go to, let's just get through these. Okay, this is the forecasted for Little Elm ISD new home activity. And this just shows kind of what I was explaining, that in the next 5 years, you're going to see us decrease in the amount of new home sales. And so that's because we are just becoming built out. The kind of shaded area at the top of each one of those little blue graphs represents multifamily units. And so we'll be adding some multifamily units in around 2022 to 2024. And that's mainly in those Brent and Chavez zones that we'll see multifamily occur. This represents just kind of what I was talking about before, but if you look at Oak Point, you see that it has a light shaded blue, and that's the kind of the most area where we have room for growth. This is our district yields. So for single family yields, which means for one house, we get almost half a kid. That's kind of what that means. And so for manufactured homes or a mobile home, we get 1.2 kids from that. And so for apartment, multifamily, we get about 0.182 for our district. Our district has, it's good for our district. We have just limited amount of multifamily, not a lot of it. And so even if we did, we're not getting too many kids from multifamily units. Just want to move to this birth rate analysis. As I said at the very beginning, we've seen historic lows in our pre-K and kindergarten enrollment numbers. And so if you look at a child that was born in 2015, 5 years later, they're in pre-K or kindergarten class. We have about a 0.612 ratio, which is lower than we've seen the last couple of years. We do think that it's going to increase the next couple of years, but right now it is lower. Okay, this just represents our 10-year forecast by campus. And if you notice our elementary percentage growth, we're actually down a little over 3% for this school year, but it looks like jumping up to about 9% for next year. So our demographers are really thinking there's going to be an increase after COVID. Hopefully COVID is kind of working through that this next year. Our middle school and our high school totals are up, especially our high school numbers are up 6%, over 6%. So I'm sure Ms. Brown and curriculum may come for more FTEs, or you've heard about that. So key takeaways, Little Elm ISD is continuing to grow. We are becoming more built out. We're looking at about overall enrollment of 430 students over the next year. And LEISD is expected to enroll more than 9,500 students by 2025 and more than 10,600 students by 2030-31. So that was quick. Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Mecca, you're back up. Or actually, this is technically the first time you're up. So thank you for answering those questions earlier.
Thank you. Good evening, President Montemayor, Superintendent Gallagher, and trustees. I'm here this evening to give you our December curriculum and learning update. Last month, I came to you with our calendar development timeline, and I have adjusted this. Part of the reasons why it has been adjusted is that when we took it to the district leadership team in early November timeframe, we had some feedback from some of our district departments, and that necessitated us looking at the calendar again. And so then last week, we took it to the Superintendent Employee Advisory Council and got more feedback from them and actually have revised the calendar, tweaked it a little bit. So we will be ready to take it to DEIC on January the 6th now. I was supposed to take it to them in November, and so we're a little bit behind of where we wanted to be, but with the different, this has been a weird year. I think we can all attest to that. And so a little bit more time and due diligence was needed to be spent on the calendar, needed to get some more employee feedback. So we will take it on January 6th to DEIC, which means that I will be able to take it to survey within a day or two after that. And then my hope is that once that survey closes, I'll be able to bring it to you at the January board meeting. Depending upon the timeline, it might be delayed until February. Depends upon how quickly I can get the results tabulated and see what the comments are coming back from that, whether we feel comfortable bringing it to you in January or February. This is going to be a year, though, and I've this year, we've changed the calendar 3 or 4 times coming to the board since we adopted it last January. When I developed this calendar, I developed it based on not being a COVID year next year. And so I'm just trying. I'm trying to get back to our normalcy. So, with that being said, we will do our best, but pending anything that happens with our state legislator or our commissioner or the pandemic, like I did last year, in the spring, we might have to come back for some revisions, but it is our goal to get a calendar out January, February timeframe so that our parents can make plans for vacation time the next year.
Well, I would say you guys did a good job this time. I know it's with the government, the state government is giving you a lot of information and changing
Thank you.
right up to.
And
So we have the Destination 2025 District Goal Update. Learning walks. Last year, we started the learning walks as part of the Destination 2025, and we have revised these some this year because it is, we are teaching and learning in the middle of a pandemic. What we will see the same during the learning walks, we're using the same form. We've had a few tweaks, and I'll go over those in a minute. Still looking at those learning targets, making sure they're aligned to the TEKS, looking at where is the teacher when we enter the room. Is there authentic literacy occurring? As you know, last year we began really working on authentic conversation, authentic writing, and authentic reading.
Dr. Mecca, can I stop you just 1 second? I think, isn't this under an
No,
action?
this is both. I had to do it as part of my update also.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
This-
This was due from me this month, so I'm
Got it.
doing it twice. And then student work, learning tools, and the rigor relevance framework. And so changes for the 2020-2021 school year, we're looking at populating whether that classroom is a virtual classroom or an in-school classroom so that we can gather data from that. We've also looked at the adapted technology indicator because everyone is using technology now. And so if you're using Zoom, it's not a good use of, it's not going to raise your points on the technology indicator because everyone's using it right now. And also district use. We are reserving the learning walks this year to my department. So we're going through and doing the learning walks and taking that pressure off of the principals and the assistant principals so they can focus on their T-test observations and their classroom walkthroughs for evaluative reasons. Another great thing that's happened, I mentioned this to you before and it's been finalized now, is that we were awarded the Blending Learning Grant Program Math Innovation Zone grant from the Texas Education Agency. And it is a 4-year process to design, launch, and scale a high-quality blended learning program in K-8 math. And we're already doing a lot of this work. A lot more of the work has been pushed forward as a result of the pandemic. And so we are ripe for bringing about the Math Innovation Zone now. So this is year 0, and we are guaranteed $125,000 this year. We are in negotiations with TEA for our notice of grant awardee. And we will turn in data and our work at the end of the summer, and then that will determine whether we get the next 3 years worth of funds, and that would be $100,000 each year. So, like I said, it's a 4-year process. This is what we determined as year 0. We were awarded $125,000, and it is our planning year. And we had to hire a vendor. There were only 3 that were available from TEA to help us with the planning and also to lead us in professional learning this year for the principals and teachers that would be taking part of this project. We want to make sure that we are personalizing and differentiating learning for all students in math. One thing when technology doesn't mean that students are doing more innovative work. You can have technology and it can just be a worksheet that's digitized. We want to make sure that we are differentiating and personalizing that math instruction experience for our students. And so we will be partnering with a TEA designated contractor, and I believe I'm bringing them to you later on this evening for that contract award. We have a key committee of stakeholders on each campus, and we are going to be focusing on building teacher capacity. We don't need more stuff. We don't need more technology in the classrooms. Our students already have devices. With your approval last month, all of our elementary teachers in our Title I campuses are also going to get the Promethean boards. What we need to be able to build up teacher capacity through quality professional learning and coaching. And so that is what we wrote the grant on. And it's one of the reasons I believe that TEA awarded it to us, because we didn't write a grant to buy stuff or things or devices. We wrote a grant to build capacity in our teachers. So we will be piloting this with a voluntary focus group this spring. Maybe 1 or 2 teachers at kindergarten, 1 or 2 teachers at 3rd grade, and 1 or 2 teachers at the middle school level that are teaching math. And then that will allow us to focus on them, and so that we can roll it out next year to all of the teachers at those grade levels.
Dr. Binka, will you remind us how many out of all the 1,100 school districts in the state, how many were awarded this grant?
I believe
remember?
less than 30 right now.
I know, yeah, it definitely
Yes,
was less than 30.
Less than 30. I want to say it was 17, but I don't have that number memorized. And then it will be cut down again.
It's just a point
in
of
the summer.
pride that we're one of,
Yes.
I'm positive it's less than 20, so I thought it was
We're
19.
really excited about it. And then they say about 50% will be awarded for year 2 and beyond. And so our goal is to do a quality planning period this year, a amazing pilot program, and solidify our data and get it submitted so that we stand out at TEA. So the first year, that's next year. We will be focusing on kindergarten, 3rd grade, and 6th grade. And then the next year, it'll be kinder and 1st, 3rd and 4th, 6th and 7th. And then on the 3rd year, we will be, it'll be in every math classroom, K through 8th grade. So our project manager for this will be Janelle Maidley, our math coordinator for the district. Key people from my department are also on here, but then we also have the following administrators in the district: Christy Gibson, Corey Worth, Stephen Richardson, Mike Bruno, Sarah Head, and Audra Vanover, who were part of the steering committee that helped us to write the grant. 2 other things that I didn't get into this presentation, as the decisions were made after we had already turned in our presentation and board sheets to Ms. Flores. You might have heard that the state commissioner paused the A to F accountability ratings. And I've sent out several pieces of information to principals, and I just wanted to make sure that you had a clear understanding of what that meant. It means that we will not be rated A to F, but we will take the STAR test. Our students will be, our parents will receive their scores on the STAR test. Teachers will receive the data from the STAR tests in order to better plan for interventions that students might need to close the gap that is occurring for some of our students due to the pandemic. The other thing is that the scores will be turned into the federal government, and we will have our federal accountability unless something is changed from the U.S. Department of Education. So the only thing that's put on pause is we will not be rated A to F.
We will be sending a letter to Representative Burgess, though, asking for his help and assistance. This is really not a year for the accountability systems that are set up, whether it's at the state or federal level. Good example with STAR testing. You know, we have students and families that have chosen at-home learning for a reason, whether it's a health reason, whatever the reason is, personal reason. We've given that opportunity for them because of COVID. And we have that option this year. Again, at the state level, they've given us that option to provide that opportunity for families. But those students still have to come to school to take the test. So, the state says you can allow students to learn at home, but they can't test at home. So the data that, that I anticipate that we'll see is going to be all over the place. And, and I respect Commissioner Morath. I think he's doing the best job he can do, but the data will not be as usable as what they think it will be. And, we will use map data or local assessments much more than we will the state test this year anyway. So I just had to get that out, but we will be contacting Congressman Burgess's office regarding ESSA.
I talked to some of the board members from the districts, and I think there's two concerns. One is that the PAC test is continuing forward. I think that was their biggest concern because we have kids who are struggling, learning at home. And then, the accountability ratings, they're not sure exactly what's going to happen, catch up after the year after. So the accountability rate that you see this year and next year, they don't mean anything. So it's going to be
And again, I'm all about data accountability, but we need to use assessments that will help us improve instruction. And this year, it certainly is not going to be the STAR test. I can promise you that. It's our local assessments, the formative assessments that really will help us fill the gaps in for those, especially the students that have gaps. So anyway, Dr. Mick, I'm sorry, I hit it.
That's all right. The other piece of information is we sent out a email today to all of our family members, our parents, that on this Thursday, we will be deploying our go bags to all students in K through 5th grade. In K to 3, what that will look like is their device that they use during the school day and stays at school will be in that go bag, and any instructional materials that they might need when we resume January 6th. At the secondary, this is going to be a reminder for students to take home their laptops, their chargers, if they're in the band, their instruments, so they can practice. I want to reiterate right now, this is not because we think the district is going to close. We have no plans to close. Our phone has been ringing off the hook. It is not for that reason. It is for that student who may be quarantined over that 2-week winter break because they have come in contact with a family member or a friend who has is COVID positive. We want to ensure that since we are closed for 2 weeks, that on Monday the 6th, Wednesday the 6th, any student that is quarantined at that time has their instructional materials with them so that their parents do not have to come up to the schools and retrieve those. And so this is only an in-case scenario for students that are that students might be quarantined. But, we do not plan on closing the district, and that is not what this is about. It is only about that individual student having the opportunity to continue their learning
I want to thank
if they are quarantined.
Yeah, I want to thank Dr. Mecca for that and Ross Roberts and the team really for being forward thinking, because we experienced that with Thanksgiving. Again, after Thanksgiving break, we did. And again, I want to thank Ashley Brown and our COVID team, Cecilia. They all continue to work on COVID over the break. We were getting text messages throughout the break, and I anticipate we'll continue to get those text messages throughout this break about families that had loved ones that did get COVID, and then their kids had to be quarantined. So I appreciate that, and thank you, Dr. Mecca, for telling all of us and making sure we get it out there that we will be open when we return from Christmas break.
We will be. Are there any questions for me? All right, thank you.
All right, so moving on to, we have our approval of minutes. First, we have the consideration of approval of public hearing minutes from November 16th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments on those minutes?
Wait. You saying, Monique has to abstain. Were you at the meeting?
I have to abstain. I wasn't present that day.
Melissa, were you at the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be 3-3, is that?
Did that work?
Okay. Yeah, I was fixing to try to do a quick head count.
It's just got to be a majority.
Yeah, okay, so,
So we're gonna have, so the same issue within, so motion passes with three.
well,
we still have to vote.
still have to vote.
All those in favor of
Yes.
approving those minutes? And then 3+ and the 3 abstain. Yes.
For not present, yeah.
For not being present. So then we also have the consideration of approval of the regular board minutes for that same evening, November 16th. So is there a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving those minutes? All right, and then 3 abstaining as well. Yeah, that's a good point here. So then we also have the consideration of approval of the canvassing meeting that took place on November 17th here at Zellers. So that one would just be Dan and I. So motion to approve.
Approve.
Can I second?
Yeah.
So I'll second. And all those in favor of approving those minutes?
So moved.
And the rest abstaining. I feel like we have one more. Yeah.
Yeah.
In consideration of approval of the special meeting minutes from December 7th, 2020. That one did have, Jason, you were absent, Dalion, and Alex.
So it's gonna be, again, you and me have to do it again.
That's right. All right. So
Oh,
is there a
Melissa was
motion?
there. Yeah, Melissa was out there.
So is there
I
a
didn't,
motion? So is there a motion to
I'm
approve the
sorry,
minutes of the
Melissa.
December 7th meeting?
so moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? 3, 4, 3 abstain. All right, thank you very much. Now moving on to, we have the consideration of approval of Destination 2020 district goals. A little deja vu.
Dr. Mecca, you're back up.
Good evening again. I'm coming today to talk to you about Destination 2025, which is our strategic plan and the district goals for 2020-2021. Just to remind you, Destination 2025 has 4 areas of focus: community engagement, teaching and learning, ensuring fiscal health and sustainability, and human capital. And so for the district focus, number 1, focus on teaching and learning, we have several goals. The first one is that the curriculum and learning services is going to ensure that we provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum so that all of our students have equal opportunities. We've said this many times, that regardless of the zip code you live in, every student should have the same learning opportunities. And so a lot of our work started 3 years ago with the curriculum audit. And as you know, we have the 5-year plan for the findings in the curriculum audit. And so most of curriculum and learning's focus and goals and internal plans revolve around what was part of the curriculum management audit. And this is one of those. Last year, we developed a curriculum management plan. And this year, we will be adding on to that with our assessment plan, adhering to the recommendations of the curriculum management audit. And so we have the use of the Common Summative Assessment Dashboard, which has been updated and is shared with principals weekly through our Canvas course. And then I will update the state results dashboard. Our taper just came out last week on Thursday, and so I will have a public hearing either in January or February on this, and the state results dashboard will be updated as much as it can be, but most of the data does not exist. It's mainly just our graduation data and some of our AP and College Board data and dual credit data that has changed since there was no STAR test last year. We also, as you know, have been deeply involved for the past 2 summers in developing our curriculum, and we continue to stay that course. So this coming summer, we will be finishing up stage 3 and beginning on looking at those exemplar lessons to embed in stage 3 of our core curriculum. This past summer, we began on stage 1 of our non-core subjects, our electives, and our CTE classes. And so we will be continuing through stage 2 of that curriculum writing this summer. Our second goal is that we have to not only provide the curriculum, but we have to provide those learning experiences so that we can see an increase in student growth and achievement for all of our students. And in order to do that, we developed the Learning Walk system last year. We revised it this year, and we will continue to use that. And so we have the Learning Walk dashboard that's updated automatically each time that we conduct a learning walk. Another piece of that goal is that all of our K-3 teachers and administrators are involved in the Texas Reading Academies that is required as part of House Bill 3. And so 100% of our teachers that are enrolled have to earn an 80 or higher on the Texas Reading Academy. And we just all had our big first artifact that was due on December the 9th. And so, as I've told you before, that if our teachers and our principals are going to have to participate in professional learning, I also participate. Even though it's not required, I am also doing the Texas Reading Academies so that I can know what our principals and our teachers are learning so that we can better support them, as are Doug Sevier, Amanda Ball, Ashley Glover, so that we can better provide professional learning that our teachers need. Goal 3 is that LEISD will engage each student in learning experiences that lead to increased college, career, and military opportunities for post-secondary success. And the first part of this is that a CTE Community Advisory Board is going to be developed. It's already is in existence. We're kind of rebranding it, bringing it back, looking at new membership for that. We really want to make sure that we have those enhanced opportunities. We were on a great path before the pandemic. We had brought on thank you. Out on 380 for students that were in the welding program. We had students that were doing their student practicums at the hospitals. And so we have had to kind of be more creative in those student opportunities this year. But we want to make sure that once this pandemic's over, that this advisory board is working with us to make sure that we have those opportunities for students. And I'm really excited about this. It's actually has been developed. We will be sharing this with you at the next board meeting. But we have developed a college, career, and military student opportunities dashboard in order to track college acceptances, scholarships that have been offered, and any opportunities that we provide our students in the events for both our students and parents, and how many we have in attendance at each of those events. And so look forward to that next month. And then our last goal is that we will engage each employee in meaningful learning experiences so that we can support student success. And so we want to make sure that all of our teachers demonstrate proficiency in the learning management systems so that we are well-versed in being able to provide quality education for our learners, both in person, synchronous, and asynchronous learning. And one of our pieces of evidence here was 100% successful completion of the required LMS training and remote learning educator certification. And as I reported to you in November, we did meet that target. We also have been working on a professional learning catalog, and we have a committee together who's looking at a long-range plan for if a teacher enters with us, what do they have to learn and be successful at in year 1 of their employment with us? What does that look like in year 2? And what does that look like in year 3 and beyond? So that they are building on their learning, layering their learning so that it just becomes deeper and deeper along certain subjects. We do publish these opportunities in Strive, and we have a Little Elm ISD professional learning guidelines that was written last year and is being revised and updated this year with the feedback from the committee. And we will be ready to report that to you in July. Our second focus is on community engagement. And the first goal there is we will communicate with the LEISD community to build trust, support, and involvement. And Cecilia actually presented on this tonight, was to create those teacher team pages to help support parents in their knowledge of the grade level expectations. And also this year, they will be building the Destination District website. And we are also focusing on an increased thought exchange engagement for each campus with stakeholders once a semester. And I have a student here in the district, and I got a thought exchange survey from that campus that my student is part of, and so was able to complete that. So superintendent focus number 3 focuses on human capital. And the first part of that is we will recruit, recognize, and retain high quality and effective personnel. And so in order to do that, we're going to be looking at recruiting at in-state universities and really focusing on those universities that are strategically selected by our HR department so that we can maximize our quality hires. And how Ms. Brown, explained this in our cabinet meeting was that, we're not just going to cast a wide net. If we have been going to the same university, recruiting at the same job fair at the same university year after year after year and have gotten 0 candidates from there, then we need to look at where we're really finding those candidates and focus on that. We're really going to focus on in-state university job fairs. And they have done a great job, Renee Pentecost, attending the virtual college fairs and showed us what that looked like behind the scenes. And it's pretty cool to go into the virtual college fairs and look at, you get to pick the district, you get to see the different things that they have. And so we are still recruiting that in a virtual manner to try and fill our openings. They will also be focusing on an increased social media presence, using a variety of social media platforms. They have established a HR Facebook page, and their goal is to have at least 1 post per week on a social media platform. They will plan and execute end-of-the-year awards events to recognize employees of the year, years of service, and retirees. Last year, we weren't able to have our event, but that we do have it on the calendar for this spring. And we will plan and execute an auxiliary employee appreciation event that HR will be planning. HR is also working on strengthening the relationships between their department and their campuses in order to increase retention in Little Elm ISD. And they have been visiting the campus in a initiative called HR2U, where their department goes to a campus and sets up in a room on that campus. And there is no agenda. Teachers can come in and just ask any question that they might have. And so I know that they have been on several campuses. I've seen them when I've been doing walkthroughs. And that's a great event for our teachers and auxiliary staff to be able to talk to HR right there where they work. There also will be doing a first-year LEISD teacher check-in and campus visits at least once per semester with those first-year teachers. And they will be utilizing a staff survey in order to gather feedback on the quality of support that is offered to our staff. Our third goal in human capital is to provide training to all district administrators so that we have consistency in the application of procedures. And they already have or will be providing training in Title IX, T-tests and T-PAS, documentation, bullying, social emotional learning, and those discipline practices and procedures. And the fourth goal is that they will develop a comprehensive compensation plan for the board to approve in August of 2020. And this manual will be the guiding document for decisions related to compensation in the future. And our fourth superintendent focus is ensuring fiscal health and sustainability. And so the goal here is that LEISD will ensure funding for teaching and learning, operations, and capital improvements to support student success at every level. And so LEISD will establish a cost containment committee composed of district level leadership to review programs in the district for cost efficiency. And they will continue the comprehensive energy plan that was developed last year and implemented and will continue through this year. And so just to remind you, these are the district goals based on Destination 2025, which is our strategic plan. And the administration recommends that the board approve the Destination 2025 goals for this year.
Is there a motion to approve the Destination 2025 plan as presented? And well, we first and second, then we open it up for questions. So Dalian, is there a second?
Second.
All right, now open it for questions.
On the committees that you mentioned, are there stakeholders from parents? There was a couple of committees.
On the professional learning committee, there is not. That's made up of teachers and principals. That is what we consider our stakeholder for professional learning, is the end user for us are the principals, administrators, and teachers. And so that is who takes part in our committee. The cost containment committee, will there be stakeholders on that committee, or is it district level?
Yeah, we can include board members.
Okay. So those, I believe, are the two committees that I addressed in there. So the professional learning, no, because parents don't receive professional learning from us. It's the internal mechanism for us to be able to provide better professional learning for our staff. Any other questions?
Any comments or questions from anyone? Okay.
The dashboard for the career, you know how I'm big on the military thing. Really kind of appreciate that. I know we talked about making sure.
Yes.
And that is actually,
It's actually live right now because we've been testing it. It's not in its final form yet.
Oh, you want to?
And so it is live. I don't want to,
Okay, all right.
it
Okay,
is
you know, I
on
get-
the
you get
agenda
excited
for
about
next
that.
month. I will drive it from the website next month and show it to you. But we have been
it's really,
playing around with it.
and I want to give a shout out to Keisha Brown. She's done a really good job with
Absolutely.
that.
Keisha worked with Casey Bain in getting that developed. So it has the look of our other dashboards.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, she does awesome with her Chris and her kids. yeah, I was just really excited to see that. Well, you know, it would be. See.
All right, any other questions? All right, so all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mecca.
All right, we have item 11B, consideration of approval of continuation of emergency paid sick leave. Ms. Brown?
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Mr. Gallagher, thank you for your time today. So I wanted to bring to you the proposal that the district has to continue emergency paid sick leave related to COVID. So many of you are aware that back in the early spring, the federal government approved and passed what's called the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, FFCRA for short. Within FFCRA, emergency paid sick leave was a component of FFCRA. So with that, there were several qualifying reasons for employees to be eligible for federal leave related to COVID. It was great. It is great. FFCRA, we've had many employees utilize FFCRA, the EPSL leave within FFCRA because, you know, they've had to be out on quarantine or their child is quarantined, so they need to stay home to care for their child. So there's been dozens of employees who have utilized it. The bad news is that EPSL is expiring. It's ending on December the 31st of this year. Depending on who you talk to, some people believe that there's a chance that the federal government might renew it or extend it. Other people believe that, you know, there's, you know, so much transition and kind of things happening in Washington, D.C. that it might not happen. So it's kind of then become the responsibility of each individual district to decide how they're going to handle that. So Little Elm ISD, we are wanting to extend EPSL, and this is if the federal government doesn't actually do it at their level. So if it does indeed expire on December 31st, 2020, we would like to continue to provide emergency paid sick leave on a one-time occurrence. It is for 2 weeks, up to 80 hours of leave for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year only. So that means it would go through this spring and end in May. We would use the very same criteria and guidelines that are detailed in the FFCRA. Those who have already used the 10 days or the 80 hours of EPSL during the fall semester will not be eligible for an additional 10 days. So this is for people, you know, we're going to extend the EPSL so that people who have not yet had an opportunity to use it, if they get some sort of COVID-related illness or have to quarantine, then they would be able to still have the 10 days of paid leave. The expanded family medical leave or EFML portion of FFCR will not be continued by the district. So what that is that the EFML portion of FFCRA was for 10 weeks of pay at 2/3 of the rate of pay for employees whose children's schools or daycares have closed because of COVID. We have not had anybody have to utilize that EFML up to this point. We can't foresee the future, but we don't anticipate that anyone would need to. But that 80 hours, that 10 days of that has been majorly utilized. So we don't want for someone who, we feel like it's an employee morale thing. It's also a supporting our employees ideal that we don't want for someone who, you know, the folks who were impacted for this folks that are utilizing the leave, but we've brought the substitute contract and expenses to you in previous months. So beyond that, there's no additional financial impact. So it is the recommendation of the administration that we continue the COVID-19 emergency paid sick leave as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the plan as submitted? Dan, is there a second? Dylan, questions?
I just want to comment. I mean, I'm glad we're there. I know we had some serious situations going on here just recently with some of our teachers dealing with COVID and losing family members. So I think this will be very helpful for them to know that they have financial means. So thank you.
Thank you.
So my question is, if we don't extend this, what happens if a teacher gets COVID? So under our normal sick leave policies, what would happen?
So two possibilities. If we don't extend EPSL 1, they would have to utilize their own accrued leave, their state and local leave that they've accrued over time. 2, if they're we'll see if they have COVID and it's a big medical situation, like it's almost like a catastrophic medical situation, then they could be eligible for the sick leave bank if they've become a member of the sick leave bank. But if they're just quarantining, like due to close contact, they would not be eligible for sick leave bank because it's not a catastrophic illness. 3, possibly they could be eligible for FMLA, like regular FMLA, but that's not paid leave. That's just job protected leave. So if we don't extend this, they could be eligible for sick leave if they get really sick. They could use FMLA, but that doesn't provide any kind of compensation. Or it could be that they have to use their own accrued local or state leave.
And how much does a teacher typically have in accrued sick leave?
Yeah, that varies. It depends on the number of years the teacher's been employed by the district, if they've had to utilize it before for other illnesses. So, a new teacher, like a first-year teacher that's just starting in education is going to have 5 days of state, 5 days of local. And then it depends on how they've had to use it.
You wiped out right there.
Yeah.
Just from our required 10-day period.
Right.
So my wife is sick for a month. And they don't have anything, so it just wipes you out completely.
Mm-hmm.
And this still just provides 10 days.
Right. For COVID-related reasons.
So for an eighth, yeah. But if you are sick and it lasts, then that's where you fall into these. There'd be other avenues to go down anyway if it is something more involved.
Yes.
Yeah, we do have this sick leave bank and
Mhm.
we have, obviously they have personal days and,
We really believe, though, in this pandemic time that any additional supports or things that we can do to let our employees know that the district is supporting them and rallying around them in this time of pandemic, I think is beneficial, really important.
Any other questions?
Just a clarification, the cost, because we contracted with stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but then we also were at public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
What's your projection on that particular issue of people being gone, we're paying them, but then we did have trouble earlier putting in?
Mm-hmm. So you're asking how would the substitute fill rate impact this EPSL? So ESS is working around the clock to recruit and more substitutes to increase the fill rate. They're doing I will tell you, I every day thank the heavens that we have ESS to work with our substitute. You guys have seen it. It's all over the news, the substitute shortage. So I feel like we're in a much better position with ESS than we would be without. In terms of how that impacts EPSL, the only real impact would be like the more substitute jobs that we fill, then we have to pay, the substitute rate of pay. But beyond that, I don't think there's a real direct correlation between the two.
Because, again, this would only be somebody that is COVID positive, so they'd be gone anyway. So we'd still be on the hook for the substitutes. We'd still have the risk of not having enough substitutes.
Yes,
It's-
all those
that's
things will still be there. It's for people who are COVID positive as well as people who have to quarantine because of close contact to someone who's COVID positive, both.
So whether we pass this or not, they still have to be at home and we
Yes.
still have to get a substitute.
Yes.
So we're pretty much covered.
Yes.
All right, are there any other questions or concerns? All right, all those in favor of approving this plan? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Now moving on to consideration of approval of new FTE administrator position.
Yes. So I'd like to bring to you, we're requesting that permission for a new FTE for an administrator position to support the work of the district. This administrator position will be on a pay grade 3, and it will have some financial implication, approximately $100,000. And we're requesting approval for this as we discussed in detail in closed session.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this position as discussed? Moved by Mr. Thompson. Is there a second? Second. Is there additional questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of approving this FTE? Thank you very much. We moved item 11D out previously. So moving on to 11E, consider approval of financial reports for October 2020. Mr. Anderson.
Good evening again, Board of Trustees. We do have the October financials, and there's budget amendments and financial information presented, include current amendments and financial information through December 2020. The financials include the general fund, capital projects fund, debt service fund, and special revenue funds. And the notes to the financials, the general fund. In 2020-21, there's no major budget amendments to the general fund. December 7th, 2020 special board meeting, we added $280,000 in custodial contracted services. And this amount is reflected in the proposed fund balance changes that you'll see later on. The general fund budgetary fund balance deficit of $690,605 does not reflect the end of the year actual. So we do have a budgetary fund balance deficit. The 2021-22 approximately, as you heard Ashley talk about, $100,000 increase in payroll cost for a new administrative position, and it's not reflected in the 2020-21 financials. Capital Projects Fund, the indoor multi-facility, purpose facility, $18.4 million, and $1.1 million had already been approved. Total project is $19.5 million. Prestwick Elementary School drainage, $189,438 that Rick will be discussing later on in the board meeting. Debt Service Fund, December 2020, they issued $25 million of 2017 authorization bonds at 0.68%, 5-year fixed term, and then it becomes variable after that if so chose, and estimated 1.25% at the board meeting. So that came in significantly lower. $15 million of authorization remaining, and the bond sale will close on December 22nd, 2020. Finance is working with RBC Capital towards refinancing the bonds approved at the November 2020 board meeting as market conditions improve. And so that's the two motions that were made was to issue the $25 million and tell us to refinance some callable bonds. And he'll continue to work towards that. Future financial considerations we review. Long-term ability program to meet the needs of the student. And again, an 86th legislative session, there's always a risk of financial sustainability, which you'll find out in this upcoming legislative session. Ongoing preventive and deferred maintenance costs of buildings. Anticipating transfer of fund balance in 2020-21 to capital outlay fund for corrective construction measures at Prestwick Elementary. And that capital reimbursement resolution that was approved, the 2017 bond of up to $10 million. And most likely not transfer that out to the general fund. But the four major economic factors which have a direct impact on school funding revenue is a slowdown or decline in property values, a recession cost and an increase in uncollected property taxes, a downturn in forecasted student enrollment, and our attendance. And as you know, that LEISD did experience the beginning of the year slowdown, and finance will continue to monitor and adjust revenue in February 2021 if needed. And then as of December 4th, 2020, our total enrollment was 8,144, and our initial budget was built on 8,218 students. The state's inability to fund education has passed under HB 3, as we discussed, cost and adjustments to funding levels. And again, the 87th legislative regular session begins on January 12th, 2021. Our general fund, the proposed amendments, just $329 in estimated revenue. It's been increased, and again, 80%, which stays pretty consistent of our appropriations, is budgeted at the campus level. And you can see that our proposed amendments, $280,329, and that $280,000 is actually from the special called board meeting that was approving the contracted service for custodians. And so right now we're carrying a $690,605 budgetary deficit. And our fund balance and our current budget prior to this board meeting was our fund balance 28.9 million, and that will not change, but we have a $690,605 budgetary fund balance deficit. And our final actual fund balance, which is reflected here now, is I guess presented as this board meeting. Our capital outlay fund, we out of the $235 million that was authorized in December 2020, the bond sales we've discussed is being completed now of $25 million. And so that'll give us a total of $220 million, $15 million remaining, and our approved budgets of $187,066,708 out of the bond sales, which leaves the remaining bond sale of budget of $32.9 million. And the projects and budgets and balances can be viewed at LEISD's financial transparency website. And that's where you can see all the projects and the project to date expenditures. Our debt service fund, this is our year-to-date realized actual revenue of $2.4 million, and our budget to actual expenditures right now is just $10,000. And our ending budgetary fund balance in our debt service is estimated to be about $7 million. The administration recommends approval of certain October 2020 financial reports as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the report as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second? Dr. Thompson, second. Is there questions or comments on financial reports from Mr. Anderson? All right, all those in favor of approving monthly reports as presented? Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. I think you stay on, right? Yeah, you're up here for a while.
Yeah.
We have a consideration of approval of Little Elm ISD expenditures over $50,000 summary report.
We have two contracts on our over $50,000, it's two expenditures over our $50,000 expenditure report. And with Cindy Micka, one is the Scholastics for $105,190. And it's the purchase of classroom libraries for Oak Point Elementary. And the other one is $40,563 with Heidemann, and purchase of guided reading books for Oak Point Elementary and they're both using program intent funds 24. And the administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD expenditure over $50,000 summary report as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the summary report as submitted? Dan, is there a second?
Second.
All right, questions or comments on this?
Only have one phone call. What about, is there any, you got some other schools as well?
So when we have when we got our PIC 24 allotment, I reached out to every principal to see what they had in need. And so different principal turned in for different things. Most of them turned in funds for intervention tutoring. And so, and then as you had approved the Promethean boards and iPad expenditure, which took right around $1 million last month. And so, the high school requested money for interventionist tutoring. So did Lakeview, off the top of my mind, Prestwick did. And so Oak Point has requested this. Next month, I will be bringing to you a request from Hackberry, who has also requested something. And so we're trying to spend that PIC 24 money to where it still meets our House Bill 3 goals in reading and math.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure there's equity between the
No,
schools.
it was, everyone gets to turn in what they want and their wish list, and most of the principals requested tutoring money. Our Title I campuses already have that Title I money for tutoring expenses, and so some of them are using it in a different manner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question real quick, Dr. Ficker. So do we see this being a recurring expense, or is this really just a one-time?
Yes. When I spend the PIC 24 money, it's always going to be a one-time expense, unless until we finish stabilizing. As you know, last year you had approved for me to be able to have new FTEs. I had the new FTEs for instructional coaches and the the reading interventionists. And then when the pandemic hit, we decided to put those on hold, and we didn't hire them this year. That would be the only way that I would have a recurring expense. But until we feel comfortable in in our allotment being steady with House Bill 3, and as a result of the pandemic, we are only doing one-time expenditures so that we don't have those ongoing costs. Good question.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, so all in favor of approving these expenses? Thank you very much. We also have the consideration and approval of Little Elm ISD contract summary report.
And we have one contract for $61,000 for professional learning for Little Elm ISD Blended Learning Grant Program. Little Elm ISD was selected by TEA as a Blended Learning Grant Program grantee. The grant provides a unique opportunity to shift instruction and impact student outcomes across our district. And this is with Dr. Mika also. So the administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD contract summary report as submitted.
Is there anyone to motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right. All those in favor of this contract?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we had also moved item 11H up earlier today. So that moves us on to consideration and approval of change order number 2, Strike Middle School. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we discussed in closed session. This is additional funding to be added as change order number 2 to the Cadence contract for contingency uses. Everything from new items that have come up to completion items to additional funds for acceleration, things that are coming up that obviously we need contingency funds for. We don't expect to spend it all, but we need to have it available so that we can make sure the subs stay on the job and keep them paid.
Is there a motion to approve this change order?
So moved.
Dan, is there a second?
Second.
Jason. Any further comments or questions on these change orders or on this change order? All right, so all those in favor of approval? Thank you very much. Does anyone have anything from consent agenda that they'd like to pull out? All right, so is there a motion to approve our consent agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you very much. All right, as far as board comments go, really, again, just want to thank all the, Daniel and all the administration for staying on top of everything this school year. It just gets, more challenging and more challenging every day. We see our COVID charts are going up. Hopefully Christmas does give us a little bit of a respite for that. But I am very impressed with how we are able to keep the district going, keeping our teachers safe, our students safe, and, getting the cooperation of everybody involved. So that's really all I have for tonight. All right. Is there any other board comments?
Merry Christmas to everyone as we go into the Christmas season. So appreciate all the work. The one thing I did want to know about is, we have the blended learning model that's coming into place. We're going to move that. I just wanted to understand how we're going to be tracking the success of that. As we go into this keeping track of the success against the tax test as well as student achievement. We're investing heavily in that, so I want to make sure that it is actually beneficial to our students.
Just want to thank staff for, again, making our job so easy, getting us the information that we require. Staying late with us again. I'd also like to extend a welcome to Dr. Thompson, and glad to have you on the board and look forward to working with you.
Happy holidays, staff early. Hope y'all enjoy the time off, recharge. I know everyone's going to be shutting down here for probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to come back and start fresh in January with no issues. So thank you for everyone. Dr. Thompson, welcome to the board. Look forward to working with you. And that's it.
Well, thank you guys for a warm welcome. Great person. Appreciate it.
Yeah. What time is it now, Melissa? 9:30. All right.
I'll just again thank the board. Dr. Thompson, welcome. Appreciate the board and all of your support and the direction we're going. Staff, thank you so much for staying late. Yeah, this was a little bit later than in the last meeting. So anyway, thank you all very much.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn for the evening?
So moved. Oh, sorry. Dr. Thompson?
Is there a second?
Sorry, I didn't see that.
DeLeon. All right, all those in favor of adjourning? All right, meeting adjourned at 9:33 p.m.